Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Anil Joshi. We are in the series that is Learn Radiology with Dr. Anil Joshi. As you all know, radiology has got multiple branches. Right from X-ray, it went to ultrasound, then CT, then MR, then PET scan, and many more in coming few years. Now, this part of lecture is on the X-ray procedure, that is the MCU, and that is also part 1. MCU itself is a very big topic. We have divided into two. The part 1 will essentially deal with theoretical aspect, and part 2 we are going to have a film reading session with multiple illustrations and multiple ways in which congenital anomalies can be detected with MCU. So MCU has got lot of applications and many of them are on congenital anomalies. Now before starting this, we want to make certain disclosures. The illustrations or the films in the lecture, in this presentation, is all ours. However, there is certain material like embryological theoretical diagrams, theoretical discussions we have borrowed as a royalty free, and we acknowledge with thanks those from whom we have borrowed that. So also there are certain part which is coming from departmental routine lecture series. I have worked in multiple medical colleges as a professor and HOD, so it has come from these departments, and acknowledge with thanks all of those who has contributed for this material. Now let us go to the embryology part, because MCU reading, MCU interpretation is going to have a big impact of embryological base. So also a technique is important, and we'll know in this part what is a normal study. So let's go to the proper study. For that we have to go into the details of the embryology. Now how a kidney is developed. As a ureteric blood grows cranially towards the metanephric blastoma, it grows and ends become dilated to form an ampulla. The ampulla divides repeatedly. The first 3 to 5 generations of the branches fuse to form the pelvis of the kidney. The next division become the major calyces, while the further division become the minor calyces and the collecting tubule. The collecting tubules form are about 1 to 3 millions in number. The growing tip of each of the numerous branches of the ureteric bud is dilated to form an ampulla. The cells of the metanephric blastoma of the contact with the ampulla undergo differentiation to form a nephron. This differentiation is induced by the ampulla. Now this diagram explains it, how it happens right from the ureteric bud towards the formation of calyces. Now further, during 6 weeks of the ureteric bud within the nephronic cord bifurcates 4 times, yielding 16 branches. These branches cloaca to form 2 to 4 major calyces extending from the renal pelvis, which is derived from the distal dilated end of the ureteric bud. By 7th week, the next 4 generation of the branches also coalesce to form minor calyces. By 32 weeks, about 11 additional generations of bifurcation taking place, yielding 1 to 3 million branches, which will become the future collecting tubules. Note they are between 1 to 3 millions. And ducts of the Bellini. The stalk of the ureteric bud forms the ureter, and its dilated end persists as the pelvis of the ureter. Here you are seeing it, how the branches takes place and how the collective system is formed. Now further, loosely arranged cells of the metanephric blastoma from solid clumps in relation to the ampulla. Each solid clump is covered into a vesicle. The vesicle soon becomes pear-shaped and opens into ampulla. The vesicle now becomes a S-shaped tube. Its distal end comes to be invaginated by a tuft of capillaries which forms the glomeruli. This diagram tells you all about. Now comes a ascent of kidneys, because we have got its role in imaging. The definitive human kidney is derived from metanephrons, which lies in the sacral region. In subsequent development of the embryo, differential growth of the abdominal wall causes the kidney to ascend to the lumbar region. Ascent of the kidneys. The definitive human kidney is derived from the metanephrons, which lies in the sacral region. In subsequent development of the embryo, differential growth of the abdominal wall causes the kidney to ascend to the lumbar region. The rotation of the kidney. The hilum of the kidney at first faces anteriorly. The organ gradually rotates so that the hilum comes to face medially. Thus, kidney undergoes medial rotation around the vertical axis. Now here it is shown how during the ascent kidney can also cause rotations. Now ascent of the kidney, at first the metanephric kidney lies in pelvic cavity opposite the sacral segment and receives the arterial supply from the medial sacral artery. Gradually the kidney ascends and reaches the iliac fossa after crossing the pelvic brim. Here it gets nutrition from the common and internal iliac arteries. Finally it appears on the intersurface of the diaphragm, where its ascent is arrested by the suprarenal glands. Here the kidney receives blood supply from the lowest suprarenal artery. Now the fetal kidneys are lobulated and its condition persists up to first year after the birth. Now here it is shown in the diagram. Now development of the anomalies of the kidney continue. Let's continue the lecture. Now according to the number, agenesis of one kidney. So these are the developmental anomalies of the kidneys. Now we are coming to agenesis of one kidney. The ureteric bud may fail to develop on one side, producing congenital absence of the kidney. The second is multiple kidneys. More than one kidney may be present on one or the both sides. This is due to the early splitting of the ureteric bud. Further continuing with the congenital anomalies, according to position, then there can be pelvic kidney. When the kidney fails to ascend, it occupies the pelvic cavity with normal function. Then fused kidneys are sometimes one kidney may be displaced from its own side and fuses with the kidney of the other side. Although the ureter retains the normal position, in fused kidneys, the higher one belongs to the normal side. Now according to the size, we are seeing the developmental anomalies of the kidney. According to size, fetal lobulation may persist in adult life. In such condition, the outline of the kidney is somewhat larger than the normal. According to shape, there can be anomalies. Horseshoe kidney. In this anomaly, the lower pole of both kidneys are connected by an isthmus of the kidney tissue which passes in front of the aorta. So I repeat again, which passes in front of aorta. So it is anterior to aorta and inferior vena cava. The ureter lies in front of the isthmus. The horseshoe kidney is situated at a lower level than the normal kidneys. Both the ascent in arrest by the origin of the inferior mesenteric artery. So why the horseshoe kidney is lower than normal is because its ascent is arrested by the origin of inferior mesenteric artery. So it is inferior to it. So this all is explaining its relation which we need in a Doppler examination. The isthmus may compress the inferior vena cava, producing somewhat venous edema of the lower extremities. A rare occasion it produces ureteric obstruction, but by and large they are unobstructed ureters. Now let us come to the anomalies in regard to shape of the kidneys. Disc kidney. This is due to the complete fusion of both kidneys across midline through the ureters descend to the respective side. The hilum of the disc kidney lies in median plane of the posterior surface. Now we see further, that is according to the failure of fusion of the excretory and the collecting system, that is the further in the developmental anomalies. Now, polycystic kidneys. Numerous cysts appear in the substance of the kidney which are filled with the urine. This condition is usually bilateral and is commonest of all anomalies. And this is again a ultrasound diagnosis where you will have a more detailed discussion when we will be seeing the pathology of polycystic diseases. Now, developmental anomalies of the kidney, we continue. According to arterial supply, there can be abnormality, that is the accessory renal artery. The accessory renal artery is the precious origin of the segmental artery, which sometimes arises from the aorta and supplies upper or lower pole of the kidney. The accessory artery is a remnant of degenerated mesonephric artery. The artery is for lower pole, usually passes behind the pelvis of the ureter and may cause obstruction to the flow, producing hydronephrosis. Now, when we are going to have a film reading session on this aberrant renal arteries, how they cause impression, we are going to see, and it's a fairly common finding when we will be seeing it, as well as it is an important finding when we are investigating renal artery stenosis. If there is accessory renal artery, then we have to be careful before interpreting renal artery stenosis causing hypertension. On rare occasion, the renal artery passes in front of the kidney and reaches the hilum, which lies in the lateral border. Sometimes the artery encircles transversely around the kidney before it reaches the hilum. Both conditions result from abnormal rotation of kidney before it fixed in the posterior abdominal wall. Then, according to the mobility, floating kidneys. A kidney may be suspended by a fold of peritoneum from the posterior abdominal wall. In this condition, the upper pole of the kidney may be tilted towards producing a twisting of the renal vessels and pelvis of the ureter. This is manifested by sudden severe pain in line with suppression of the urine. Now, absorption of the lower parts of mesonephric ducts into cloaca. Now, we are in the anomalies of the urinary tract. The part of mesonephric duct caudal to the origin of the ureteric bud are absorbed into the vesico-ureteral canal. With the result, the mesonephric duct and the ureteric buds now have a separate opening into the cloaca. These openings are at first close together. However, the opening of the ureteric bud move cranially and laterally due to continuous absorption of the buds. The triangular area on the dorsal wall of the vesico-ureteral canal between the openings of the ureteric bud and those of the mesonephric duct is derived from absorbed duct and is therefore of the mesodermal origin. You can see it over here. Now let us come to development of ureter. The ureter is derived from the part of the ureteric bud that lies between the pelvis of the kidney and the vesico-ureteral canal. The epithelium of the urinary bladder develops from the cranial part of the vesico-ureteral canal, that is endoderm. The epithelium of the trigone of the bladder is derived from the absorbed mesonephric ducts, that is mesoderm. However, it is later overgrown by the surrounding endodermal cells. The muscular and the serous walls of the organs are derived from sphagnopleuric mesoderms. The developing bladder is continuous cranially with the allantois. It is uncertain whether the allantois contributes to the formation of the bladder. The allantois atrophies and is seen in the posterior life or postnatal life as a fibrous band. So, in postnatal life, the allantois is seen as a fibrous band. The urachus extend from the apex of the bladder to the umbilicus, and this is again an anomaly which we are going to see in the part 2, that it can be detected with the help of MCU. Now, developmental anomalies. we are continuing. The congenital rectovesical fistula. This is due to incomplete development of the ureterorectal septum and the persistence of the cloacal duct. Then congenital vesicovaginal fistulas are there. Then urachal cyst. Sometimes the allantoic diverticulum is obliterated at the proximal and the distal part but remains patent in the middle. This produces a cyst which may be palpable as a midline elevation of the infra-umbilical part of the anterior abdominal wall. Now, urachal fistula. The allantois may remain patent entirely and urine appears through the umbilicus. So this is called weeping umbilicus, the urachal fistula. The allantois may remain patent entirely and urine appears through the umbilicus. This usually is associated with congenital stenosis of the urethra. So unless there is a distal obstruction, the urine will not flow through this channel. Now, ectopic vesica are the anterior wall of the bladder is deficient and the inferior and anterior to the bladder, that is anterior aspect of the bladder, is exposed to the infraumbilical portion of the anterior abdominal wall. Now, development of the urethra. The female urethra is derived from caudal part of the vesico-urethral canal, that is endoderm. This female urethra may receive a slight contribution from the pelvic part of the urogenital sinus. Now, development of male urethra. The part of the male urethra extends from the urinary bladder up to the opening of the ejaculatory duct. Original opening of the mesonephric duct is derived from caudal portion of the vesico-urethral canal, that is endoderm. The posterior wall of this part is derived from absorbed mesonephric ducts. The rest of the prostatic urethra and the membranous urethra are derived from the pelvic part of the definitive urogenital sinus. The penile part of the urethra, except the terminal part, is derived from the epithelium of the phallic part of the definitive urogenital sinus. Now, the terminal part of the penile urethra is that lies in the gland is derived from the ectoderm. Here they are showing diagrammatically. Now we are seeing what can be the congenital anomalies of the urinary tract. Not all can be derived with MCU, but the topic we have taken today is, can we detect congenital anomalies of the urinary tract by MCU? The answer comes as yes. We can see many of the abnormalities, and it is also true that not all. Sometimes IVU and MCU combination gives a complete evaluation of urinary tract. However, here we are going to see first what MCU can give you, what information can be sought from the MCU, and then what can be derived from the IVU. So first, MCU for detection of congenital anomalies. Now, the terminology voiding cystourethropy is the correct technology, which is often referred to as MCU. It is also known as maturating cystourethropy. It's a fluoroscopic study of the lower urinary tract in which a catheter is used into urinary bladder and the contrast is introduced into the bladder via the catheter. The purpose of the bladder, urethra, posterior operative anatomy and the maturation in order to determine the presence or absence of the bladder and urethra abnormalities, including vesico-urethral reflex. So these are the main aims for which a MCU is performed. We'll see further the indications. As per American College of Radiology and Society of the Pediatric Radiology guidelines, the clinical indications for voiding cystourethropy includes recurrent urinary tract infection, dysuria, hydronephrosis, and or hydroureter, bladder outlet obstruction, hematuria, then post-operative evaluation of the urinary tract, and prodroma, incontinence, neurogenic anomalies of the genitourinary tract, as to add few more. Now, what are the contraindications? They are acute urinary tract infection, hypertension hypersensitivity to contrast media, pregnancy are the contraindication. Most of the contraindications are either those who are contrast related or those who are related to radiation contraindications. Now we have to explain the procedure to the patient. If it is child, then to the parents, and if the patient is elderly who can understand, we have to explain them the procedure. Take the written informed consent, then empty the bladder prior to the procedure. This is mainly to achieve good concentration of the dye in the urinary bladder. Then sedation may be given to a child, but in our center we have never required sedation in any of the studies performed till date. Then patient lies supine on the X-ray table, then plain X-ray of the bladder region is taken. We prefer, if it is a child, entire child's X-ray can be taken, that is including chest and abdomen, so that we know lot of information about the spine, so also of the chest, and is added information before we start the procedure. Or sometimes it helps us to evaluate the child in toto if there is something like associated cardiac anomalies or there are lung anomalies that can also be found out if we include chest in an abdominal X-ray. Now how the procedure is done? The bladder is filled with contrast using infant feeding tube. Under aseptic precaution, a Foley's catheter can be used for older children, but our routine practice is to use a infant feeding tube. Intermittent screening of the patient on fluoroscopy while distending the bladder with contrast is necessary to check for the uretrovesical junction or VUR. After the bladder is filled, its capacity, which will vary as per age of the patient, and the patient is now asked to void. Now, is there any formula for the bladder capacity? That's a yes. For children less than 2 years, it is a bladder capacity. How it is calculated? Age in year plus 2 multiplied by 30. That will give you the bladder volume approximately. For children less than 2 years, children more than 2 years, the bladder capacity in ml is weight in kgs multiplied by 7, and adult it is around 500. It's absolutely variable and we should not really go with it, but it will give you a rough idea before planning a procedure. The bladder is filled until the patient is seen to start voiding or there is uncomfortable urge to micturate. Our practice is to fill it, and we use a small feeding tube so that the urine starts flowing from the side of a catheter once the bladder is full. We do not go with the mathematical formulas. The spot radiographs of the full bladder are taken in PA and oblique projection. Though it is suggested, our practice is to take overcouch films and not a spot film. Then after withdrawing catheter, patient is asked to micturate. The older children and adults are given a urine receiver, but smaller children should be allowed to micturate into absolute pads or table. We prefer a kidney tray is given, but most of the time it is not of any use. Now in females, the films are taken as epi and lateral. Usually obliques are not taken in females, while in male usually obliques are preferred. Male right oblique, left oblique, with right knee flexed, entire urethra and lower ureter will be seen. What we do is, whichever side the child is rotated, that side the knee is flexed and kept under the other leg, and relatives are holding the patients. Now finally, a post-void film is taken to record post-void residual contrast in the bladder, and post-void film should include whole KUB region to demonstrate any reflux of the contrast into or might have occurred unnoticedly into the bladder. Often it happens that most of the film you will not find any contrast, but when we go for the post-void film shows some contrast in the renal pelvis. So it is extremely important to include kidneys in a post-void film. Then modified technique is for stress incontinence following additional films are taken, that is lateral full bladder at rest, lateral full bladder while staining, and lateral bladder during maturation. Then for fistula, a series of film in AP lateral oblique positions may be required. Then causes of incomplete bladder emptying. They include effect of sedation, which we do not use, then dysuria following catheterization, it's extremely common, then neurogenic bladder, then refilling of the bladder from the significant vesico-ureteral reflux. So this is also very common. Then what are the complications? The complications are due to technique, then urinary tract infection, urethral or bladder trauma, then rupture of the bladder from the over distension, and there can be due to contrast medium, which includes adverse reaction to the absorbed contrast, then contrast induced cystitis are the few complications. Then are there any specific diseases of the urinary bladder? Yes. Now congenital bladder agenesis, bladder hypoplasia, bladder duplication, congenital diverticulum of the bladder, then urachal abnormalities, then urachal sinuses and urachal cyst, urachal diverticulum and patent urachus, bladder exstrophy. Then what are the acquired? Acquired are bladder calculi, cystitis, bladder fistula, bladder injury, detrusar, hyperreflexia, detrusar, areflexia, etc. Now come to vesico-ureteral reflux. Vesico-ureteral reflux is a term abnormal flow of the urine from the bladder into the upper urinary tract and is typically a problem encountered in young children. Then voiding cystoureterography is indicated after the first UTI only if ultrasound reveals hydronephrosis, scarring or other abnormalities suggestive of high-grade VUR. VUR can also be detected on ultrasound. So it's an ultrasound detectable abnormality, and obstructive uropathy or in patients with complex clinical conditions, vesico-ureterography is also recommended if there is recurrence of a febrile UTI. Then identified by the MCU are the presence of grades of VUR, then while reflux occurring during maturation or during the bladder filling, then presence or associated anomalies can also be detected. What is etiology? Primary reflux is a fundamental deficiency in the function of the uretrovesical junction. Then bladder and ureter remain normal. Then reflux occur despite adequately low pressure. Then urine storage profile in bladder is the length diameter ratio in almost always less than that described in a PECune. Then inadequate tunnel length has greater impaction, and secondary reflexes are the cause of this form. The reflex is most often from failure of the bladder to empty properly, either due to blockage or failure of the bladder muscle or damage to the nerves that control normal bladder emptying dysfunction, which can be congenital, acquired or behavioral. Now what are the PU wall? They can be prostatomegaly, ureterocele, then ureteral duplications. What we are seeing are the anatomical causes of vesico-ureteral reflux. In other words, what can cause vesico-ureteral reflux? Now these include posterior urethral valves, prostatomegaly, ureterocele and ureteral duplication. Now neuromuscular dysfunctions can also cause it, that is neurogenic bladder, spina bifida, infant voiding patterns, then dysfunctional voidings and uninhibited bladder contractions can cause all these things. Now grades of VUR, these are very important. The vesico-ureteric reflux grading divides vesico-ureteric reflux according to the height of the reflux up the ureter and degree of dilatation of the ureter. Now grade 1 is a reflux limited to the ureter. Grade 2 is a reflux up to the renal pelvis. Grade 3 is a mild dilatation of ureter and pelvic alaceal system. Grade 4 again is further divided: tortuous ureter with moderate dilatation, then blunting of the fornices but preserved papillary impressions. Then grade 5 are tortuous ureter with severe dilatation of the ureter and pelvic-callaceal system. In that, the grade 5-2 is the loss of fornices and the papillary impressions. Now here they are shown. Grade 2. This is grade 3. This is grade 4. This is grade 5. Now coming to posterior urethral valves. Posterior urethral valves are also referred as congenital obstructing posterior urethral membrane (COPUM), are the most common congenital obstruction lesion of the urethra and common cause of obstructive uropathy in infancy. The congenital thick folds of mucous membrane located in the posterior urethra, that is the prostatic urethra plus membrane distal to the verumontarum, and most common cause of the severe obstructive uropathy in children, almost exclusively in the males, and leading cause of end-stage renal disease in the boys. Though here we see it is more common in male and exclusively in the male, we are going to show you a couple of films in which you will feel or you will find that females are also involved. It is also there in the females. The valves, thickened mucosal folds, can be identified on voiding cystoscopy or USG associated with proximal dilatation of the prostatic urethra. Now, according to Young's classification, there are 3 types of posterior urethral valves: type 1, type 2 and type 3. Type 1 are the most common, occurs when the 2 mucosal folds extend anteriorly from the bottom of the verumontarum and fuses, that is type 1. Type 2 are rare, that is mucosal folds extend along the posterior lateral urethral wall from ureteric orifice to the verumontarum. And type 3 are circular diaphragm with central opening in membranous urethra, then located below the verumontarum and occurs due to abnormal canalization of the urogenital sinus. Now, radiographic features are the first ultrasound. Bladder is typically thick walled and trabeculated with elongated and dilated posterior urethra, that is keyhole sign. Second is hydronephrosis. Almost commonly, although it is important to note, this is absent in about 10% of the cases. Hydronephrosis may not be there, and this we can really appreciate when we are going to see our film reading session. Kidneys may be hydronephrotic with loss of normal corticomedullary differentiation, a manifestation of renal dysplasia. Then, voiding cystoscopy. The best imaging technique for the diagnosis of posterior urethral valves is the voiding cystourethropy. The diagnosis is best made during the maturating phase in lateral or oblique views, such that posterior urethral valves can be imaged adequately. Finding includes dilatation and elongation of posterior urethra equivalent to the ultrasonic keyhole sign, then linear radiolucent bands responding to the valves, usually or occasionally seen. Then vesico-urethral reflux seen in 50% of the cases, and bladder trabeculations and diverticuli are also noted. Now this we are going to see when we will come to our film reading session, that is part 2 of this lecture. In part 2 we are exclusively going to see all these anomalies. Not only that, we are also going to see that whether we can identify other abnormalities also associated with it. Now, rare anomaly in most of cases, the wall is in fact the dorsal wall of the congenital urethral diverticulum, that is the anterior urethral wall. They are rare. Etiology is anomalous. It is developmental membranous congenital cystic dilatation of the normal or accessory urethral glands, and cusp iris semilunar shaped. The degree of the obstruction is variable, may be subclinical or rarely may result in severe obstruction. Now presentation, the infant or young children come with a obstruction. The older children will come with a diurnal aneuriasis or UTI. Now meatal stenosis. Meatal narrowing of the urethral orifice may be caused by mental webs, can occur in both male and females, then associated with hypospadias, then acquired more common. Meatal stenosis is more common as an acquired disease. Now presentation is a weakness of the urinary stream and staining during maturation. The diagnosis is by clinical imaging of the obscuring features are present. Bladder diverticulum, sac formed by herniation of bladder mucosa and submucosa through muscular wall. Then mostly they are acquired and more common in male. In rare stages, multiple small protrusions of the bladder lumen appear between the trabeculae, saculations. As they enlarge above 2 cm, they become defined as a diverticula, most found close to the ureteric orifice. The stasis in diverticula may lead to stone formation. 2% cases leads to carcinoma, then tumor like squamous cell carcinoma. Wide neck diverticulum empties rapidly when the bladder empties, while a narrow neck diverticulum empties slowly. The classical symptoms of double maturation: when the patient empties the bladder, a significant amount of urine is stored in the diverticulum, which when empties back into the bladder, causing a desire to maturate almost immediately after the first maturation. So let's try to understand this mechanism. When the bladder is contracting, the pressure is more in the bladder and it is less in the diverticulum. So urine flows into the diverticulum. When the maturation stops, the bladder pressure drops. So from diverticulum, the urine again flows back into the bladder and the patient will feel again urge. Now bladder herniation, in almost 95% of bladder herniation is on the inguinal or femoral canal. Usually smaller, asymptomatic, painful, partially obstructed maturation because that tends to remain in normal position, then usefully narrow neck and fill poorly on routine contrast imagination, and they may not be diagnosed. So best seen on prone or erect films. Most commonly is paraperitoneal in location, bladder remaining extraperitoneal and medial to the true inguinal hernia sacs. Now bladder stone is not covered in this lecture series. Basically the lecture series is meant for the congenital anomalies. They are detected by MCU, but the part 1 also includes a technique of MCU, therefore bladder stones are also covered. Most are the mixtures of calcium oxalate and calcium phosphate, primarily forming de novo in bladder, then secondarily drop into the kidney. Then stasis, bladder outlet obstruction, neurogenic bladder, bladder diverticulum are the some other examples. So what we are seeing in first, second and 3 is the primarily the stones are formed in a bladder. If not, then what is the second route is a stone is formed in the kidney and that further drops into the bladder, that is they are called as secondary. So primary are those who are formed in the bladder, secondary are those which comes from the kidney and then drops into the bladder. Then infective, especially proteinous, mirabilis. Then foreign bodies, nidus for the stone, so that is important etiology. A foreign body can form a nidus for the stone, and stricture can cause a poor stream, residual urine in the bladder, that is stasis, and that also can form a bladder stone. So that is another thing. And suture material migrated from intrauterine contraceptive device or even a Foley's catheter which is retained there for a long time can also cause a stone. Then pubic hair introduced by catheter into the bladder can also lay down a calcium around it, and there can be a bladder stone. Then usually midline with patient supine and easy to diagnose on plain X-ray if it is seen. Then is it that this technique doesn't have any complications? Yes, it has got complication. The contrast reactions due to absorbed through the bladder mucosa is extremely uncommon, usually not seen, but theoretically yes, the contrast reaction can be there for the MCU. Then is UTI, then urethral trauma. This can occur. Then intravasation of the contrast due to use of the excessive pressure in the stricture are the complications which are enlisted. Now these are the theoretical. Basically we are doing it with a small feeding tube, number one. Number two, the size of feeding tube we are using is much less than that of the urethral size. However, there can be a stricture which can be a resistant to the introduction of catheter. Our routine technique in this patient is to go for RGU so that a urethra will be mapped, and after that you go for MCU depending on the feasibility. If stricture is too tight, then best is to go for IVP following MCU for urethral visualization, but it will miss the vesico-urethral reflux. So it is not an ideal technique, it is a compromised technique. Now here we are seeing two things. One thing is the normal, that is on the right side, and the normal, that is a diagrammatic, and what we are seeing is the at actuals MCU. So it's a normal MCU demonstrating bladder as well as all parts of the urethra. First is cystogram. First is the plain X-ray. Start with cystogram, then do for the MCU and take the film. Cystogram is taken in AP while the MCUs are taken in oblique. The part of urethra which should be seen are diagrammatically presented on the right side. Now this is one more example. So here again we are seeing a bladder catheterized, dye is put, and while maturating films are obtained, and right side I have given you a diagrammatic presentation as to how to decode them. We have seen multiple congenital anomalies of kidneys. We have seen the embryological basis. Embryological basis is essential to understand what can be the abnormalities or in which way the abnormalities can manifest. We have also seen a technique of MCU. We have also seen indication, contraindication, and at the end we have seen normal MCUs. Basically, aim of this lecture series of part 1 and part 2 is to cover the technical aspect in part 1, that is embryological basic, and second was the normal MCU in part 1, and in part 2 we are going to see a film reading session particularly with the abnormalities, and not only those who are with the MCU but also whether MCU can help us to get congenital anomalies of the urinary tract. And with this, I thank you for giving me your valuable time. Please note, radiology is not a race, it's a process. Be a part of this and enjoy the feast of knowledge. I am Dr. Anil Joshi, logging off till we meet again. Try to understand behind all pathologies what is the embryological basis. Then try to acquire a correct technique. When you do these two things, we can fairly come close to a diagnosis. When a procedure is done properly, the complication rate is low. That's why we should know theoretical aspect also as well as practical aspect also. Try to apply your knowledge. Try to make help of whatever has been told to you, and develop your own method so that more and more patients will be developed. There will be less complication and you will be beneficial to the mankind. Therefore, I request, do your best, try to gain maximum knowledge, give it to the patient, and try to benefit maximum patients. Thank you.